I used to be the kind of man who didn't have to say a word to be heard. You know the type: broad shoulders, strong hands, the kind of presence that made people straighten up when I walked into a room. 6'3", built like a brick wall from years of construction work and honest labor. My voice used to carry weight, too, low and rough, like it was dragged over gravel. Folks used to call me sir, even if they were older than me. But by our 9th anniversary, none of that seemed to matter anymore. I wasn't James or the man of the house. I was just Lily's husband. And that title? She said it like she'd bitten into something sour. Her tone twisted it into something that meant failure. I'd been out of work for 8 months. Construction slowed, and the company I ran folded under the pressure. Jobs weren't coming in, and bills didn't wait. I tried, God knows I tried. Sent out applications, followed up, knocked on doors, even talked to guys I hadn't seen since high school. I wasn't just sitting around. But in her eyes, I may as well have been a stray dog lying on the porch waiting for scraps. Lily? She had it all together. Principal of one of those fancy prep schools, uniforms, blazers, the works. She wore heels in the house like she was walking a runway, not just from the kitchen to the living room. She came home in designer dresses with fresh nails and a fresh attitude. She had this new glow about her, but it wasn't because of me. Then there was Eric. I remember the first time I saw him. Skinny jeans, smug grin, hair slicked back like some character out of a teen soap opera. He was maybe 25, tops. She introduced him as an assistant coach on mentoring. I shook his hand, gave him the kind of grip that says, "You better be careful," but he didn't flinch. Just smiled like he owned the place. Like I was the one visiting. At first, I thought I was being paranoid. Thought maybe I was just frustrated and seeing things that weren't there. But Lily got careless, or maybe she just didn't care. He started showing up more and more. They'd sit close on the couch while I was in the kitchen doing dishes. She'd laugh at his jokes in a way I hadn't heard in years. Her hand would linger on his arm just a second too long. And then, one night, our anniversary, of all nights, I was in the kitchen sautéing garlic. Her favorite. I was putting together that shrimp and pasta dish she liked so much, the one I used to make when we first got married. I had candles lit. I'd even shaved and put on a clean shirt. I still had hope back then, some stupid little flicker. She walked in with Eric right behind her, the scent of her perfume hitting the room before she did. She sat at the table like it was any other evening. He followed, dropped into a chair like he lived there. "Oh, and Eric's staying over tonight," she said, swirling the wine in her glass. "You'll need to sleep in the guest room." Just like that. No hesitation. Like she was asking me to take out the trash or fold the laundry. I stood there holding the wooden spoon, the smell of garlic and betrayal hanging thick in the air. I didn't throw the plate. Didn't yell. Didn't even blink. Just nodded, walked over, and kissed her on the forehead. "Sure," I said. "Whatever you need." She smiled like she'd won some kind of contest. But I wasn't defeated. That night, once they were settled in, I went out to the garage. Quietly. The way I used to sneak into deer blinds before dawn. I reached under the bottom drawer of my old red toolbox, the one my dad gave me, and pulled out a flat, taped envelope. Inside were documents I had prepared months ago, evidence, timelines, even photos. I collected it all slowly, quietly. Every detail, every lie. I had printed screenshots, receipts from hotels, even a note she once left in her jacket pocket that smelled like cologne that wasn't mine. People like Lily think they're clever. Think their power and pride will blind you, make you too ashamed to fight back. But I was never one to scream and flail. I was the type to wait, measure twice, and cut once. I slipped the envelope into a duffel bag and packed a few essentials: boots, jeans, shirts, my razor, and the pocket knife my grandfather gave me. No need for a dramatic exit. I planned to walk out quiet. No shouting match. No second chances. I lay in bed that night in the guest room, staring at the ceiling fan spinning slow above me. From the other side of the house, I could hear them laughing. Her laugh didn't sound like it used to. It was sharper, emptier, like a mask trying to smile. That was the moment I knew. I was done being the help in my own house. Done being background noise in her little performance. The next sunrise would be mine. I left before the sun even thought about rising. The sky was still that deep blue-black, stars barely fading, crickets still chirping like they didn't know the day was coming. I didn't slam any doors. Didn't leave a note. I just zipped up my duffel, walked out the side door, and loaded my truck in silence. The engine purred, steady and low, like it understood the weight of the moment. I pulled out of the driveway slow. Didn't look back. I already knew what I'd see, her curtains still drawn, the porch light flickering like it always did when she forgot to change the bulb. Eric's car in the spot where mine used to be. That image alone was enough to keep my eyes forward. 30 miles down the highway, just across county lines, I found a place to start over. Not a big city, but bigger than the one I left. It had a couple of gyms, a strip mall, and a diner where you could get decent coffee for $1. Rents were lower, people didn't ask many questions, and most importantly, no Lily. No Eric. I got a room above a hardware store owned by a man named Dale. Good guy. Vietnam vet. Walked with a cane and made a point of shaking my hand like it meant something. He didn't ask why I had a bruised knuckle or bags under my eyes. Just handed me the keys and said rent was due every Friday in cash. I nodded. We understood each other. I spent the first few days fixing up the room. Changed the light bulbs, patched a hole in the wall, cleaned the grime off the windows. I needed something to do with my hands. I bought a second-hand punching bag, hung it from a steel beam in the back room, and hit it every night until my knuckles ached. But peace is a strange thing. It calms you, sure, but it also gives you space to think. Too much space, sometimes. I kept replaying that night in my head, the way she said, "You'll need to sleep in the guest room," like I was a tenant overstaying his welcome. The way he walked through my house like he'd built it with his own 2 hands. I didn't miss Lily. I missed who she used to be back when we were young, broke, and happy just to share a meal and a cold beer on the porch. Back when her laugh was real and her eyes didn't hold secrets. But that woman was gone. And the one who remained? She needed a lesson. 2 weeks. That's how long I gave myself. Time to cool off, build strength, and remind myself that I was still a man, not the doormat she tried to make me. It was a Saturday when I drove back. Late afternoon. Sun still out, bugs buzzing in the heat. I pulled up slow, tires crunching the gravel of our old driveway. My house looked the same, except it wasn't mine anymore. There was a lawn chair in the front yard that I didn't recognize. My favorite whiskey sat on the porch table, half empty. She was lounging in yoga pants, sunglasses on, phone in hand. He was shirtless, tan, muscles that came from posing, not working. His feet were up on the railing. He was sipping my whiskey out of my glass, the one with the etched elk on the side. I stepped out of the truck, boots hitting the ground hard. They saw me and froze. Lily lowered her sunglasses. "James," she said, voice tight like piano wire. "What are you doing here?" Eric sat up, eyes wide, mouth half open. Pale. Real pale. I didn't say a word. I walked across the yard, slow and steady. The way I used to walk onto job sites when there was a problem only I could solve. My shadow stretched long in front of me. I stopped a foot from Eric, looked him dead in the eye. Then I hit him. One clean punch, right to the jaw. He dropped like a sack of dry cement. No fight. No noise. Just a grunt and the thud of his body hitting the porch. Lily screamed his name, scrambled over to him. "Don't come near me again," I said, looking her dead in the eyes. She blinked fast, mouth opening and closing like she was trying to think of something clever to say. Nothing came. I turned around, walked back to my truck, drove off without looking in the rearview. I should have felt proud, like I'd stood up for myself, like I reclaimed something, but I didn't. All I felt was tired, bone tired, like I'd just finished a job that took too long and paid too little. That punch didn't fix anything, didn't undo the betrayal, didn't rebuild my life. It was just one hit, one moment, and it still felt like the wound was wide open, bleeding slow. I figured it was over. That punch I gave Eric should have been the last chapter. I'd left the house, the woman, and everything tied to her behind. I wasn't trying to be a hero or some movie cowboy. I just wanted to be left alone. After I left that day, I went back to the gym where I'd started helping out. Local place, one of those spots with high-end machines, protein shakes that cost $10, and kids who wore $300 shoes but didn't know how to throw a jab without flinching. Their dads were too busy pretending to be men in meetings, so they paid guys like me to teach their sons how to take a hit. The owner, Greg, liked me because I kept my head down and showed up early. No drama, no complaints. I took pride in cleaning the floors as much as I did in holding mitts. I signed a lease on a modest one-bedroom above an old tailor's shop a few blocks away. I had what I needed, 4 walls, a fridge, and a bed that didn't creak every time I shifted. I didn't talk much about Lily, and no one asked. It was peaceful in that small way that you don't notice until it's gone. Then came that night. It was a Tuesday. I remember that. I'd stayed late to help a kid named Ethan. Skinny arms, soft voice, heart of gold. His dad never showed up to pick him up on time, So I kept him company until the guy rolled in 15 minutes late and didn't say a word. Once they left, I hit the lights, tossed my towel over my shoulder, and stepped out the back exit like I always did. The alley behind the gym was narrow, dimly lit. Brick walls, one busted light above the dumpster. I'd walked it 100 times. Never gave it a second thought. But that night, the shadows felt heavy. I was halfway down when they stepped out. Two of them. Both masked, dressed in black from head to toe. One taller, one shorter, but both built like they'd done this before. They didn't speak. No demands, no threats, no, "Hey man, give us your wallet." Just silence. Cold and fast. The first one swung a bat at my ribs. I felt the crack before I heard it. My legs buckled, but I didn't drop. I tried to move, to square up, but the second one came from the side with a boot to my shoulder. My arm popped, dislocated clean. I tried to cover my face. Didn't work. The bat came again, this time straight to my jaw. Lights out. I don't remember hitting the ground. Don't remember the sirens. But I do remember the nurse's face. She was young, red hair pulled back tight, freckles across her cheeks. She looked at me like I was some stray dog left on the side of the road. Not disgusted, just full of pity. Like I was too far gone to be angry at. I stayed in that hospital bed for days. Jaw wired shut. My ribs wrapped tight, arms strapped down. Couldn't eat, could barely breathe. Pain was my roommate. Nurses came and went, whispered in the hallway like I was a ghost they weren't sure could hear them. The cops showed up. Young guy, looked like he'd just passed his exam. Asked questions with a clipboard in his lap like he was ordering lunch. Any idea who did this? I shook my head. Couldn't talk anyway. He said they'd look into it. Said they'd check cameras, though I already knew that Allie had none. Said they'd file a report. I knew the script, but I didn't need a detective. The next morning, a delivery came to the front desk of the hospital. A plain white bouquet. Nothing flashy, no frills. Just white lilies, wrapped in brown paper. No note. No sender listed. Just the flowers. Her name. I stared at them for a long time. Longer than I should have. Lily. She never signed it. Didn't need to. I knew her handwriting too well to believe she'd send a card anyway. This was a message. Not an apology. Not remorse. A warning. A statement. She wanted me to know she wasn't done. That hitting Eric, walking away from her house, and reclaiming a shred of pride was more than she could tolerate. She couldn't let it stand. I didn't tell the nurses. Didn't tell the police. What would they do? What could they do with flowers in silence? No fingerprints on petals. No trail on paper. Just a name carried on a stem, blooming in a vase by my bed. That night, I asked the nurse to throw them out. She hesitated, like she wanted to say something, then just nodded and took them away. I never saw them again. But the message stayed. She wasn't finished. And now I had to be ready. Getting back on my feet wasn't easy. Every rib reminded me what happened. Each time I turned my head, my shoulder barked. The jaw stayed wired for 6 weeks. I couldn't chew. Could barely talk. For a while, even breathing felt like a chore. But healing came, one painful inch at a time. I waited until I could walk on my own again, steady and strong. Then I made the call. Gave the envelope to a mutual friend, someone who knew us both before all the lies and poison. I trusted him to do the job with dignity. He dropped it at her front door. The packet was thick, neat, precise. No drama, just the truth. Inside, she'd find a notarized divorce petition, a timeline of her infidelity, screenshots from messages, printed records of hotel stays, a restraining order request citing her probable connection to the assault, a civil claim tied to hospital bills and emotional damages. The truth laid bare in black ink on white paper. No fists, no shouting. Just the kind of war she wasn't built to fight, cold, lawful, and deliberate. I mailed a second copy of everything to the school board where she worked. Certified mail. Signature required. She held a high position at that prep school. Loved putting Dr. Lily on everything. She ruled that building like a queen. Smiles in the hallways, poison in the staff meetings. But reputation only carries so far when a packet like mine lands on a board member's desk. 2 weeks later, she was asked to step down pending investigation. That's what the article said. I read it twice, sipping my coffee real slow. I didn't dance or cheer. Just nodded once and kept flipping the paper. Eric? Gone. The moment things got messy, he vanished. Packed his stuff, deleted his social media, and skipped town. Someone said he took a coaching job 2 counties away. No goodbye, no loyalty. Just like that. She lost him the moment her hands got dirty. I never reached out, but she sure did. It started with a call. One ring, then gone. Then another. Then 5. Then 10. I didn't answer. She left voicemails. Soft at first. Please, James. I just want to talk. Then came the shaky voice, sniffles between words. Then the ones where she couldn't speak at all, just heavy breathing, maybe tears. I deleted them without listening all the way through. After that, the letters started showing up. Yellow envelopes. Her handwriting on the front. Inside, long pages of apologies and excuses. Talking about stress, confusion, how Eric manipulated her. She wrote about memories we shared, camping in the woods, dancing in the garage with no music, Sunday coffee on the porch swing. Said she still loved me. Said she made mistakes but was trying to be better. They all smelled like the perfume she used to wear. The one that clung to her skin when she came home late and I'd pretend not to notice. I read the first one, half of the second. Then I stopped. I didn't need those words anymore. I had already buried the idea of her. The woman she once was didn't exist anymore. And the one who remained? I had no room for her in the life I was building. I boxed the letters up, every single one, tied the box shut with twine and dropped it in the back of my closet. Not out of spite, just as a reminder that closure doesn't always come with fireworks. Sometimes it's just knowing when to stop opening the door. The hospital did more than patch me up. It changed me. Not just in the bones or the jaw they had to wire shut, but in the quiet. That deep kind of silence that sets in when the painkillers fade and the machines stop beeping. The kind that sits with you at night like an old friend and teaches you things loud moments never could. It wasn't an empty silence. It had weight. It carried lessons. I learned that anger burns hot, but it doesn't last. What lasts is choice. What you do when everything is broken and there's no one left to blame. That's when I decided I was going to build something again. Not just for me, but for men like me. Men who were drowning in their own homes. Men who were told to shut up, tough it out, and smile through the shame. Men who had taken one hit too many from the world, from people they loved, and sometimes from themselves. I got back to training within 6 weeks. Not because I was fully healed, but because I needed it. I needed to feel something that didn't come from bitterness or pity. I started with lightweight, squats, resistance bands, grip work. Every lift was a step forward. My ribs barked, my shoulder groaned, but I kept going. Soon I was hitting the heavy bag again. Not with rage. With rhythm. I took a part-time gig at the gym where I used to work, just to stay sharp, but I knew that wasn't enough. I didn't want to punch a clock anymore. I wanted to create something. Something real. Something that couldn't be taken away with a signature or a bottle of perfume. That's how Stone Rising was born. I sold the old pickup, scraped together what savings I hadn't spent on medical bills, and leased a crumbling warehouse on the edge of town. Leaky roof, busted windows, a cracked cement floor that echoed like a church in winter. I saw beauty in it. It was raw, like me. I painted the walls myself. Hung heavy bags from old scaffolding. Rebuilt the locker room with leftover wood from my construction days. Hung an American flag on one wall and a punching timer on the other. No frills. No mirrors. Just sweat and truth. The place wasn't just a gym. It was a place for men to find their footing again. I opened it to veterans dealing with flashbacks and bad dreams. To young guys who'd been tossed out of their homes or fallen in with the wrong crowd. To fathers who'd lost custody and were trying to hold on to what little dignity they had left. We didn't talk much about our problems. But in that space, when the gloves were on and the sweat hit the mat, something changed in all of us. One day, a local journalist reached out. Said she was doing a piece on men rebuilding men. Normally, I'd pass on that sort of thing, but I figured maybe one story could help someone else who needed it. I agreed to meet her at the gym. She showed up wearing jeans and boots, not heels. No fake smiles, no makeup caked on like a mask. She looked around the space with curious eyes, not judgmental ones. "I'm Jenna," she said, holding out her hand. Her grip was strong. No hesitation. She asked the right questions. The kind you can't fake your way through. About pain, about loss, about purpose. I told her about the hospital. About the alley. About how betrayal doesn't always wear a stranger's face. And she listened. Not just with a pen and pad, but with her whole self. Turned out, she was a single mom. Widowed early. Husband had passed in a wreck 6 years prior. Left her with a little boy named Liam and a mortgage that didn't care about grief. She wasn't looking to be rescued. And I wasn't looking for someone to fill a gap. But over time, we just grew toward each other. Like two trees leaning into the same light. No fireworks. Just warmth. Steady and quiet. We talk after hours. Sometimes over black coffee in the break room, sometimes sitting on the edge of the ring with our legs dangling over the mat. She told me about Liam's love for dinosaurs and how he refused to eat anything green. I told her about my father's belt collection and how I learned to swing a hammer before I learned to drive. It wasn't love at first sight. That kind of love doesn't last. This was better. I told her everything about Lily one night while we sat on the roof of the gym with a thermos of coffee between us. The lies. The house. The fists. The flowers. She didn't flinch. Didn't pity me. Instead, she reached out and ran her fingers across the scar on my jaw, the one that still aches in the winter. Good thing you made it out, she said, her voice like dusk settling over the mountains. And I realized then, I didn't survive to stay angry. I survived to rebuild. 6 months after I served Lily the papers, the divorce finally went through. It was a cold Wednesday in the courthouse. Rain tapped on the windows like it was waiting for its turn to testify. I sat in the back, watching lawyers shuffle around like vultures circling over roadkill. I didn't wear a tie, just a clean button-up, my boots polished, and my shoulders straight. I wasn't there to perform. I was there to end it. The judge read everything carefully, page by page. The timeline of the affair, the photos, the receipts, the restraining order request, my hospital records, clean and clear, 3 fractured ribs, dislocated shoulder, jaw wired shut. The officer's report about the assault. Even though they couldn't trace it directly to her, the connection was obvious to anyone paying attention. The judge didn't waste time. He ruled in my favor. Said the case showed sufficient cause for asset protection and restitution. Said the marriage had irreparably broken due to provable betrayal and circumstantial evidence of harm. In plain English, it meant Lily walked away with nothing but her name. And after what she'd done with it, that wasn't worth much either. The house? Sold. Proceeds went straight into my medical bills, court fees, and legal support. Not a dime in her direction. Not after the photos. Not after the hospital reports. Not after the bouquet of white lilies left at my bedside. The cabin? That one stung her more than the rest. It was a small piece of property upstate, nothing fancy, just a pine-wrapped little place my parents left me. It had a wood-burning stove and a squeaky front door and memories packed into the walls like old insulation. She loved that cabin. Used to call it her retreat. But that was before she turned our life into a performance and left me bleeding in an alley. She tried to fight it, of course. Filed complaints, cried in court, talked about how much she'd sacrificed for our marriage. Claimed she helped pay the mortgage, she didn't. Said she had emotional ties to the place. The judge listened, nodded politely, and then he ruled that she had 90 days to vacate all shared assets. Cabin included. She sobbed. Real, mascara-streaked sobs. The kind meant to move mountains. The judge didn't blink. Neither did I. 90 days. That was her grace period. After that, anything left behind would be considered abandoned property. I'd already made arrangements to have the locks changed the morning after the deadline. And Eric? He disappeared faster than she expected. Word got around that he took a transfer out of town. Some quiet little school district 2 counties over. I didn't bother tracking him down, didn't care to. But folks talk, and one day a buddy of mine from a construction supply store said he'd seen him listed as a coach on a JV football team at a community college. Apparently, he ghosted her. Blocked her number, ignored her emails, left her unread on every platform. The same guy who strutted around my porch drinking my whiskey and wearing smugness like cologne couldn't even be bothered to show up to her hearing. He'd only stayed for the perks. The power. The attention. Once those vanished, so did he. I imagined she was stunned. Betrayed by the boy toy she brought into our house. Left alone with her reputation in ruins and court-ordered deadlines stacked like bricks on her chest. Nobody knows what he tells people now. Maybe he spins the story to make himself look like a victim. Maybe he says I was some violent brute. Maybe he claims he never knew she was married. Or maybe he tells the truth, if there's any decency left in him. But I don't need to know. What I do know is that I survived it. Every betrayal, every bruise, every lie whispered through lipstick smiles. I stood up in front of the same woman who tried to erase me and walked out with my head held high. The scar on my jaw still catches in the mirror some mornings. And yeah, some nights I dream about fists and footsteps behind me. But when I wake up now, I don't feel dread. Jenna and I moved into a little place just outside town, tucked back off a gravel road with a weathered fence and a front porch wide enough for 2 rocking chairs and a dog bed. It wasn't fancy, but it had a soul. like it had been waiting for us. The kind of place you don't just live in, but grow into. We planted fruit trees out back the first spring, apple, peach, and one stubborn fig that never seemed to take. Every morning I'd walk the rows, coffee in hand, checking leaves, tapping the soil. Jenna called it his slow stroll, and she'd wave from the kitchen window with a smirk like she'd caught me doing something sacred. Liam, her boy, was 8 when we moved in. Tough little guy, but kind-hearted. Always asked questions, always watching. First time I met him, he sized me up like a foreman checking a new hire. We started slow, basketball in the driveway, teaching him how to grip a hammer, Saturday morning pancakes. He called me coach before he ever called me dad. And honestly, I liked that. It felt earned. Felt right. We hosted barbecues when the weather was good. Pulled pork, potato salad, cold beers in mismatched koozies. Folks from Stone Rising would show up, bringing folding chairs and stories. Jen'd play country songs on the speaker, and Liam would run around with a garden hose like it was a fire hose. No tension, no lies, no eyes darting toward the driveway, afraid of who might pull up. Just peace. The day I proposed, it wasn't some grand event. No skywriting or candlelit trail of roses. Just the two of us on the porch. Crickets chirping. The scent of fresh-cut grass still hanging in the air. I poured us each a glass of whiskey. Good stuff, not the kind I used to hide in the garage. We sat in the rockers, talking about nothing and everything. I reached into my jacket, pulled out a simple ring. Silver, with a small engraving on the inside. Built, not bought. I didn't even kneel. Just looked her in the eye and said, "You make everything better. Want to make it official." She cried before she said anything. Then she laughed through the tears and nodded. "Yes, James. Of course, yes. We didn't need anything more than that." But the town showed up for the wedding like it was a parade. The folks from the gym cleaned up real good. Dale from the hardware store wore a BOLO tie. Liam carried the rings in his best flannel and a grin too big for his face. The ceremony was simple, outdoors under a big oak tree with wind chimes singing behind us. Jenna wore a dress that fluttered in the breeze like it was part of the air itself. I stood there in my boots, tied just a little crooked, hands steady as stone. When she walked toward me, it wasn't just a moment. It was an arrival. After we said, "I do," we all piled into trucks and headed straight to Stone Rising. The gym looked different that night, strung with white lights, tables where punching bags usually hung. We played music, danced, ate barbecue off paper plates. It wasn't fancy, but it was real. There were no shadows in the corners, no names left unspoken. Just people who had clawed their way through their own mess and came out better on the other side. At one point, I caught Jenna leaning against the wall, watching me dance with Liam. Her eyes were glassy, full of something that made my chest ache in the best way. She mouthed, "Thank you." I shook my head and whispered back, "No, thank you." It was everything Lily never imagined. Everything she said I could never build. A life made of bricks, not lies. For the first time in a long stretch of years, I didn't feel like I was surviving. I felt like I was living. Until the call came. Right after the honeymoon dates were finalized. Phone buzzed late at night. No name, just a number I didn't recognize. I almost ignored it. But something in me said to answer. I stepped outside, away from Jenna's soft breathing and Liam's little snore from the hallway. The crickets had gone still. Wind just barely stirred the leaves. I picked up, and I heard her voice. Thin, cracked, familiar in the worst way. "James, I need to talk to you. Please." My hand clenched around the phone. Not from fear, not even from anger. From the knowledge that ghosts don't rest until you bury them yourself. Lily showed up 2 days after the wedding. I wasn't surprised. Not really. Folks like her always feel the world owes them something. Especially when they've lost it all and can't figure out why their charm don't work anymore. She'd heard. Of course she had. Small town doesn't keep secrets for long in weddings. They're louder than firecrackers in July. Word gets around fast. It was late afternoon when she walked into Stone Rising. I was in the middle of coaching a few of the younger guys, high schoolers, mostly. We were working on footwork drills. Simple stuff. Focused stuff. She walked in like a ghost that hadn't realized it was dead. Her frame was thinner, almost brittle. Hair overprocessed, brittle at the ends. The heavy makeup didn't hide how tired she looked, like she hadn't slept in weeks. Her perfume hit the air like a punch to the throat. Same one she used to wear when she'd come home late, trailing secrets through the hallway. I made mistakes, she said, her heels clicking across the floor like they belonged there. But I still love you. She said it like she was handing me a lifeline. Like she thought I'd forgotten the alley, the hospital bed, the bouquet of lilies by my side. I didn't flinch. I just looked her dead in the eye. You love control, I said, voice steady. And you lost it. She blinked, caught off guard. Maybe she thought I'd play along, let her cry on my shoulder one last time. She stepped closer. You can't really love her. Not like you loved me. That made me laugh. Not loud. Just a quiet, breath through the nose kind of laugh. I didn't bother answering. I didn't need to. I reached behind the front desk and pulled out a manila envelope I'd stashed there just in case. My lawyer had drawn it up the week before the wedding. Said it was always smart to stay ahead of crazy. I handed it to her. She opened it, eyes scanning the papers. Hands trembling. Inside. A notarized cease and desist. Court-ordered no contact. Legal warning about showing up at the gym or our home. All official. All clean. You're not in my life anymore, I said, flat. You're not even in my story. Just the prologue. Her face cracked then. Not like crying, like something deep inside her had finally broken. She screamed. High-pitched, raw, like glass being dragged across steel. But no one moved. Not the kids on the mats. Not the trainers. They'd heard my story. They knew the truth. And in that moment, she realized the stage was empty. No audience left to manipulate. No one to charm. She turned and stormed out, heels echoing against the concrete like a gavel slamming shut. That was the last time I saw her. Epilogue. Burying the past. Life didn't pause after Lily left. If anything, it bloomed. The next spring, Jenna and I had our first child together, a baby girl. We named her Grace. She had Jenna's eyes and my steady hands. Her cry could wake the whole neighborhood, but her smile? It could make a grown man feel like the world was brand new. We painted her room sunshine yellow. Put up shelves full of books, soft toys, and one old baseball glove I cleaned up for the day she wanted to toss it around. Liam was protective from the start. Called her Peanut. He'd stand by her crib, humming tunes and promising to keep monsters away. Our house stayed busy, loud with joy and footsteps. Barbecue smoke, baby giggles, friends dropping by with pie or tools or both. But some nights, after the lights went out, I'd take a walk through the gym. Just me and the hum of the freezer, the quiet ticking of the clock on the far wall. I'd stop by the front desk, lean against the counter, and look into the dark glass of the front door. My reflection always stared back, a little older, a little grayer at the temples. That reflection told a story of a man who once had everything torn away, respect, love, pride. A man who got humiliated, beaten, tossed aside, but didn't stay down, didn't chase revenge, didn't build a shrine to pain. He built something stronger. He got better. And the woman who tried to bury me? She's just a whisper now, a forgotten page in a closed book. Nothing more than wine through the cracks of a story that belongs to someone else. My story? It's still being written. And every page smells like sawdust, black coffee, and fresh hope. Share your thoughts in the comments. Do you think Lily truly believed she could win James back? Or was it just another power move? If you liked the story, subscribe to the channel and give us a like.